this is a yarn balance, and it's used to determine the yardage per pound of a yarn. So for example, if you have a cone of yarn from your stash and it doesn't have any label in it, you don't remember anything about it, you might want to know what the yardage per pound is, because that can give you information about how to use it and how much you've got. So if there's no labeling, you use a yarn balance to find out the yardage per pound. Now the yarn balance has two parts. One is this little arm, and it's got a notch cut out on one side, and it's got this little wire that's used to allow the arm to balance. And then it sits on the base, and the base has a slot cut out here on each side. And so you sit it so the arm falls backwards into this slot. So here's where the notch is, and you can see that it's raised. So what you do is you take a length of your mystery yarn and make it a long one, because if you cut it too short, you'll have to start again. So fold it in half, and you want the ends to be about equal, and then set it so it goes into the notch. Now, if you've cut it long enough, this arm will now balance forward. And so you can see that the arm is touching the slot on the front, and it's up in the back. And you take a pair of scissors, a good sharp pair, and you start cutting. Now you want to cut both ends at the same time, and you're watching this arm as you're cutting. And make sure that the tails hanging aren't touching like the counter surface or anything that might prevent them from just hanging freely. And as it gets shorter, you'll see that arm starts to move. And when you cut it so that the arm balances, then stop, because that's the length that you want. So your next step is to measure the length of yarn. So lay it on a ruler or a tape measure and find its length in inches. And so this is just about 13 inches long. Now you take that 13 inches, so 13 multiplied by 100, and this yarn is about 1,300 yards per pound. So you know that the yarn is 1,300 yards per pound. And so what does that tell you? Well, two things. One, if you don't know that much about this yarn, you can use that 1,300 yards per pound as a way to look up other yarns that might be similar, and then get information about likely knitting gauge or likely weaving set for yarns that are similar. So compare yarns to yarns that are the same fiber content and have about the same yardage per pound. So for example, this is about 1,300. We know that pearl cotton is also about 1,300 yards per pound. So if you don't know what this is, but you look up pearl cotton at 1,300 yards per pound, you can see that it's typically set at 12 to 15 ends per inch. So you know a little bit about where you should start at least sampling with this yarn. The second thing it helps you do is know how much yarn you have. Now, going by yardage is a more exact way to know that you have enough yarn compared to just going by weight. So you know it's 1,300 yards per pound. So you weigh it on a reliable scale in pounds. So our scale automatically weighs in pounds. You may have to do some adjusting or calculating. But so this is 1.2 pounds because we've subtracted for the cone. So 1.2 pounds at 1,300 yards per pound. So 1.2 times 1,300. You've got 1,560 yards to use. And you know that thanks to your yarn balance.